Welcome to the Pat Life Podcast. I am Patrick, and again, I have with me my dear friend Moses Christopher. What's up, dude?
How's it going?
Going well, man.
All good. Yeah.
I hope I know we just spoke, but it sounds like all is a little forensic in France right now with the holidays, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's like that everywhere around Christmas
Yeah.
time, at least within the, Western kind of like civilized culture that we live in. But yeah, it's sometimes it's surreal when you're stuck within a parking lot. To leave the parking lot will take you, I don't know, a ridiculous amount of time where normally the same place will take you, let's say
Yeah.
5 minutes, not even, when you're stuck there for a half an hour because
Yeah.
people are
Well,
going
it,
crazy for Christmas.
well, it's interesting how holidays, like these designated times of years, have such they carry such weight, right? They carry such an energy.
Mhm.
I always think that's interesting. Is just like any music or any portrait, like it carries a certain energy, like the Mona Lisa. It's like you'll be waiting in line to see a picture for for some people hours, and it's like, oh, that's just one picture. Or it's like
Right.
yeah, I don't know, these little things have always been
Yeah,
interesting.
it blew my mind when I saw the Mona Lisa for the first time here in the Louvre
Yeah.
museum. I was expecting, a better painting.
Dude, you know
And
yeah,
to be honest, the amount of people that were surrounded by it,
dude.
there were so many people going crazy to just get a picture of it. And I walked up as close as I could, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, this is the Mona Lisa? Like,
Dude,
there's
yeah.
so many other Leonardo da Vinci paintings out in the hallway that would blow this one away. This is crazy that
well
people are going crazy over this one.
well what's so funny is when we visited and we saw you, um we went to the Louvre, and long story short, there was like these lines for it, and I was like, it's not even worth it. And my Andy was like, don't you want to see it? I'm like, not really. It's just a painting. And now that I know more about really what it's all about, I'm like, even better. It's just a dude.
Right.
It's a dude. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. I don't know
Dude.
the whole like hidden story behind it, but yeah,
But that's what's so
it's
funny. It's like,
yeah.
but this is like the thing, not that it matters. It's just a situation where you're like, well, why is this so interesting? And then you kind of look into it, like someone, as we've talked, this is all about being, the creative mind and owning that, and what it means to be creative. It's about asking questions, digging deeper, trying to understand true meaning of whatever's inspiring you or whatever's keeping your attention. And as I go through it, and it was more just like is this what, do people know this? Is this why they're interested? Or is it just they have no clue? And if that is the case, then I'm like, what is driving somebody to wait 3 hours for something like that? And that for me was just then like, oh wow, that's so fascinating. Kind of
Mm.
funny, to be
It
honest.
is. It's kind of funny. That's interesting. To be honest, I have heard a couple different stories behind,
Yeah,
the history behind the Mona Lisa, but
dude,
the fact that it's actually a dude
so
makes it even more interesting.
well, some people have
Um,
said like, oh, it's like, him at a younger age and all these things. In reality, it was his I forget the gentleman's name, but it was his basically his apprentice, and that they had a love affair, and it was this whole.
right.
But anyway, so it was him, all the paintings. That's why they said one of the big things was that smirk, was a smirk at just, you know, this isn't what you think it is, kind of thing. That's
Right.
what was so fascinating. That's why they drew so much attention to that. But, for me, it was just, again, that's the part of kind of diving into it. It's like the creative mind of, like yourself, you're creating music, you're then basically producing it all as well. It's a matter of, okay, well, what's inspiring, what is something that's drawing me. I don't know how you kind of create your songs. Is it based off a certain situation, a time frame, a word, and then do you blossom from that? But that creativity, like how do you go through that process? Is it a matter of starting to be like, all right, well, what is love? What is this? And do you kind of start asking questions when you're kind of building your
Sometimes.
creative process, or how do you go about that in that regard?
Well, kind of as we spoke about in that last podcast that we did together, I it comes in different ways. you know,
Mhm.
whether it's influenced musically through playing the guitar and coming, you know, stumbling upon some kind of musical idea that will then inspire me in one way or another to come up with ideas for the lyrical side of the song. And sometimes it'll literally be the opposite, where it's a lyrical idea or melody more so with certain kind of feeling or vibe that's
Mhm.
going to push me into, you know, writing a new song. Like, I'll give you these two examples. I have these two new songs that are going to be coming out in the new year. One of them is called Breathe, which you've probably already heard or
Yeah.
seen a couple of little clips I put up.
Yeah.
That one came from the guitar. That one last year, while we were in the Alps, I started actually really playing the guitar, inspired by the nature out there. Just kind of sitting in this like wood cabin, and we were all together. And I remember just some nights just like already starting to pluck away at that little finger style riff. And then that was just this combination of just this breathing this fresh air, being out in nature. It just made sense. And then like I had the guitar, I started singing the words, and breathe was like just the first word that came out. And then from there, it was like, okay, I know where I'm going with this
Right.
overall direction of the song. And then I have, for example, this other song that's called Escape, which was influenced by many events, I think, right now in during this last year within the COVID situation,
Mhm.
being confined, being forced to kind of stay at home, being restricted, having a lot of our freedoms and liberties that have kind of been stripped from us, you know, willingly, because we want to try to do the best that we can for the future and for everybody around the world. But that song was influenced by this lyrical idea of just like feeling like I need to get out of here. I need to get one out of my head of all
Mhm.
these thoughts. I want to sometimes just escape from these thoughts and all these ideas and all these things, pressure that I'm feeling in my mind of one, not being as creative as or productive because of the COVID situation. And also two, just also wanting to escape physically, like seeing another place. Like you're just being stuck in the same apartment. You're in the same four walls, the same space all the time. I think, at least for me, as someone who loves to travel, who is creative, and that feeds off of that
Right.
inspiration from sometimes going to visit a place I've never been, or walking through a city and exploring um, side of me, kind of it really that's what brings out. So with those two songs, those are kind of two examples, like being stuck inside of my own head, and then being stuck inside of our apartment for such a long time.
Right.
Just came these words. Sometimes I need to escape. Sometimes I want to run away. Sometimes I need to escape. Sometimes I need to run away. And it's like, that was the words. And I was like, okay. And
Right.
then I just kind of started trying to figure out how I'm going to build that. And then they usually, one or the other, you know, whether it's musical or lyrical, then they just kind of fuse together. And it's just like, I just put a little bit of effort to try to find how I want those things to come out. And creatively, that's at least the songwriting process, to dive in a little bit deeper. That's like two examples, and that's usually the ways that I will work on a song, unless it's a collaboration and I'm working with some other group of people and they're like, we have a beat, we have a song, can you write a hook, can you play a guitar line on this, or do a lead solo in this part. But that's obviously then I'm being creative to suit somebody else's project. um, and when I'm creating my own stuff, it's more just as it comes, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, with all of that, yeah, and I think that's the part that kind of was drawing me the most to this conversation was is when you see now specifically in the music business, where you get these now celebrity musicians who they start off being their own person, writing these songs and doing these things, and then you see them come mainstream. You kind of hear time and time again they're telling the same story of like this through their music a lot is like, I just want to go home. I want to go back to that life that I once had of just being able to be free. And what it's always drawn to me is like, as you said, like when you're collaborating, that's one thing, but when it's a collaboration, being like, no, you have to do this, and that becomes kind of who you are as a creative. I feel like my question is that really person really being the creatives themselves as they could be to the potential? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, yeah, a lot of them are creating music, but and then they're still obviously doing really well, but it's like when you hear them and they're talking and through the music, it's like, is that truly them? Are they really being able to express their creativity in the way they want? Or is there so much restrictions? There's so much limitation, kind of like what we're seeing in the world, but now someone's creative thought process, it's kind of like they're living in this four walls of like, create within this. Don't experiment.
Mm.
Don't try to play with this riff. We need you to keep it to this 4 chord progression. We only want you to write, you can add to the hooks. Like these are things that I've started really thinking about, because it's like, as you said, being that everyone is in their minds confined, or they feel confined to the offers that are being put to us, with these rules and regulations. It's just a matter of, all right, you are being restricted, your thoughts are being restricted, you can't ask questions, you can't do certain things. And as you just said, how is that affecting people's creative, outlets, their music? It sounds like
Yeah.
you're actually bringing something to life, though. You're saying, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Let me actually create something from who I am through that experience, which I think is important.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know what I mean in regards to, musicians that are obviously worked their way up? Do you see that from a musician yourself? Do you see any of that?
For sure, for sure. I mean, there's so many artists that um, in their early careers, they were, I think, a little bit more, they were risk takers. They kind of did what they wanted to do.
Right.
I would say two artists that I enjoy, and much more their earlier works is like Coldplay,
Mhm.
or even Maroon 5. When
Oh, yeah,
Maroon 5 first came out, they were first started kind of releasing music, or I mean, they were around for 10 years before they started to get popular. But as soon as they started to get popular, in my opinion, they started just drifting closer and closer and closer and closer to the commercial side. What sells, what keeps feeding this machine this train that we jumped on of
right.
success? What can we keep feeding that machine to keep growing it? And I don't blame them. I would say that they still put out really good music. I would say that the style of it, though, for my own taste, it's been it's been kind of formatted in a way where now every song kind of is not necessarily that it's the same, but it's fit to be this like huge radio hip hop polished. Their earlier stuff was a little bit more organic, was a little bit more real. Maybe they'll go back to that, but I guess it's one of the unfortunate sides of making the decision to jump on the, you know, that kind of popular pop, mainstream commercial radio avenue, or stick to being one of those like indie, more low key artists. I mean, Jack Johnson, like he's gained a lot of success, but he still stays within this vibe of like, you know, I'm not gonna start putting, electronic. I'm not going to start doing what everyone else is doing, even though Jack Johnson could put his voice on some stuff like Maroon 5 is doing, and it would still sound great. He's sticking to this grain that's kind of more organic, natural. And I think those musicians, they even know like, well, I'm not going to gain this much success, so I could be limiting the success. But on his creative side, someone like Jack Johnson, who I enjoy listening to as well, every once in a while, he's still putting out really good music that I think he really loves. I'm
Yeah.
not sure Maroon 5 really love the music they're putting out unless it sells a lot.
Right.
Or unless it gets played on the radio a lot. So I think there is that, you kind of make that choice as an artist. What direction am I going to go in? Am I going to chase that direction of, the numbers game, as far as getting tons of streams and millions of views, and that's an option? Or am I going to be a little bit more true to myself and potentially not ever reach that level of success, but maintain my own identity, so to speak?
Right.
And there's really, I wouldn't say that one is better or worse, or that one's right and one is wrong.
Right.
It's just, you make that choice. And I think if you have the opportunity to do what Maroon 5 have done, I applaud them. They're doing what a lot of artists would love to do. And, the same way that I would apply Jack Johnson for sticking to what he's been doing and just staying in his niche. You know, it's I respect both avenues because it's really difficult to even just get your name out there and build your name as an artist and build a music career. So I think when you know, that's not
See,
sure if that touches on that, but
no, it does, and I think where maybe just my outlook on life is a little different. Is and I'm not, a musician for the sake of like making a living off of. Is for me it is a no-brainer of just staying the true to yourself, only just as an observer of everything. As I said, I watch and I see these musicians and these stories that they in doc interviews and as well as their music, and I'm hearing them saying a lot of times, like, look, I just love the way it once was, but now I can't go back. As you said, I've made this choice and this is where I go. And just like anything else, when driven by material, as your idea of like this is success, it's really hard to let that go because you're given the world from their point of view, given
mhm.
everything, and it's just a matter then of how do I just give that up for a lot of people. And that's just for me, and that's the identity of like, oh, I hear, let's say, Moses Christopher in these music, or oh, this is Moses singing and it's catchy and it's a good song, but I don't hear Moses in this. Like I don't hear
Mhm.
his lyrics. And like for me, that's just something I've kind of been like, this is important because like anything else in time, if as long as it's not completely scrubbed or taken away, when people are staying true to themselves, it time is really where the 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 marker, let's just say, for success of that, of identity, of like, hey, my identity, I stay true to who I am through my journey, and the success will find itself. People will find that because it's like anything else. People want something that's true, something that's beautiful and genuine. Even though, yes, we'll listen to these songs or listen to, you know, some people like follow celebrities. It's like, but someone who's true to themselves, they're like, I want that. How are they living that life? Like, and I don't know Jack Johnson personally, but I assume that there is some of that to him. And it's like, you get kind of almost a little more attracted to that just in being like, wait, this person can have it all and they're not doing that. I want to listen. I want to hear what this person does. And I feel
Mhm.
like that energy in itself kind of draws people in, um,
Right.
because it's like, I get to hear this person for who they are. Like, when they're singing songs that are just the same, like as you said, just like the same progressions that are seem very mainstream, polished. It's like, I'm hearing this song that I heard, 3 songs prior, just a different singer, maybe a different tempo, and maybe a couple different synths added.
Right. Right.
So that's just my opinion, but again, I'm not. My life isn't making an income off of it, so I can't speak. It's just someone who is a creative mind. That's just where I go with it. But
Right, right. Well, unfortunately, being that we live in a system, in a capitalistic system that defines the majority of us as individuals um, by how we can earn an income.
right,
And the comfort of life is also defined by how much money we have. You know, I think that's what unfortunately pushes a lot of musicians where they see that light at the end of a certain tunnel, you know, and they're kind of like, okay, I can keep sticking this route and financially it's going to be like this, or I can go this route and potentially it's going to skyrocket and I'll make a lot of money. And
right,
unfortunately that's the unfortunate side, I think, of the industry, and it's been like that for a long time. But I think today you see it even more because it's
right.
even more saturated. There's just so many people trying to be artists and musicians and saying they're artists and musicians and putting music out that it's a beautiful thing that so many people can just create an account, record some music, buy some equipment, put stuff out in the world. But again, then it saturates. It kind of
Yeah.
creates this even deeper ocean that, as like someone who's really either trying to make a living or someone who's really trying to get music heard, it becomes even more complicated.
Oh yeah,
So then, yeah, it just becomes this kind of vicious cycle that's
yeah,
like, okay, how do I get heard? How do I do this? That you have to almost do something that's even more radical or more crazy or super commercial.
of course.
Um, yeah, it's a very interesting time with music. It really reminds me. I think the time we're living in now really reminds me of the 80s hair metal kind of period where,
Mm,
I mean, I was only like a baby, a child at that time, but I remember looking back at documentaries when they talk about like Nirvana and the grunge period,
mm,
where it was this kind of, when one side reaches way too much, it balances out and then comes out, the yin and the yang, where it's like
right,
the hair metal thing just went to the point where everybody was, makeup, big hair, crazy colored, clothes and guitars and jumping around the stages and putting on a circus show. And then Nirvana was just like, no. And then they changed the whole thing. So I'm hoping I'm still going to be alive to see that happen, to see some artist or some group or somebody come around. That's something I'd like to do, but I don't want to be that, that egotistical to think that that would be me. But I would just love to see someone do that. Just
right,
have someone come along artistically that's gonna reshape this whole music game, and creative field that we're kind of living in. Someone that can come along and that's gonna really just repave the platform, where again it's gonna be kind of like everyone who's following that commercial side is gonna kind of be like, oh, damn, we've been chasing the wrong game, and now to
right.
flip over, it's gonna be too hard. But
But that's the
yeah, I
thing.
think that'll be interesting.
But as much as I know you say you don't want to be egotistical, and to say I'm gonna be that person who does it, obviously there's obviously truth to your statement, but I'm always in the mindset of, well, I could be part of that change. I could bring that energy, right? And that's not egotistical. That's just genuinely saying, like, look, I have an energy, I have a conscience. If I'm using that as well as the creativity and combining it all into that potential that I have, well, then I can sure as hell be a part of that journey of making
Right.
part of that change. You know what I mean? So, like I said, to say you're that person who changes it, like obviously that's a bold claim, but to be like, is what you're doing through your music and through your creativity of being like, all right, well, I'm just going to keep doing my thing. And, I've seen your journey, obviously through social media and seen in person, but just seeing how much you've done and how many people reach out and inspire, like you really start to see that in my opinion, from an outside point of that's the shift the shift that is happening is people are wanting to hear someone who's genuine, like the street performer, because there's so much more of this connect. Even musicians say, I want to do more personals, like the Mike Posner's been like, I like that, being able to just play in front of people again, like
Yeah,
intimate.
he's a great example, actually. I'm a big fan of Mike Posner's work.
But
And
this, but that's the point is like, how do you make that shift? Like how with the 80s, hair metal and into the grunge, it's like you just need people who are willing to say, all right, well, this is what the complacency has been, and this is what everyone says you have to do because this is the thing, but I'm just going to do me. I'm going to do what is the self, the identity of who I am. And I think that's what's more than ever now is missing in a lot of people is people using their creativity to think for themselves, ask questions, dive deeper. Why am I feeling these emotions? Is this truly something that I'm feeling or expressing, or is this coming from somewhere else? Like if I'm
mm,
writing a song about, love, and it's a matter of someone who's like never been in love or has never had a relationship, it's like, is that you're not writing, you're writing for something else. You're writing for an idea of what you want people to believe or think. And I think that's where it gets a little bit chaotic, as you said, or saturated. It's the same thing in the film
right.
industry too. And I've had this conversation with an old colleague of mine. Is like we were sitting talking about creating a channel, and I'm like, well, what is it? What's going on? Like, what are we experiencing? And he was like, I don't even post any fitness stuff because I'm just saying the same thing as everyone else. I go, exactly, dude. There's no reason, and there's a lot of education you can get, but it's like, how do you stay true to yourself but still get information across? And it's like sometimes you have to go a different route. And
Mm,
so that's why even though mine doesn't seem fitness related, it's like it's not about just fitness. It's about being present, being aware, being true to yourself, being conscious of who you are and what decisions you're making. And I think that's for me is that's wrong so true is like because then that could pertain to everything. Same thing with music. Like when you're moved by music, people maybe you have had this is people go, oh man, dude, when I'm stressed, I'll just start singing, in your situation, maybe like, hey, when I'm stressed, I love listening to your songs, Moses. It really helps me. So you can start to see how music and just this identity of self is what will draw people's attention, get people, hopefully thinking for themselves or being
Right.
creative for themselves. Because I think that's what makes this place so beautiful. I know
Right.
that's a long-winded response, but
To touch base just a little on what you were talking about as far as, and it kind of just like popped in my mind because I read it I read it recently. It was an essay by Ralph Emerson called Self-Reliance. I
mhm.
don't know if you're familiar with
No.
Ralph Emerson. He's an American writer from, if I'm not uh, misinforming everybody, I think from like around the 1800s or late 1800s, early 1900s. I know it's around that time frame. And his essay Self-Reliance, it's for anyone who's going to potentially listen to the podcast. If they take some time, you can find it online for free as a PDF,
Mhm.
or you can easily find it online. And it's a great essay, kind of, I would say, discussing some of the things we're talking about right now, as far as being true to yourself and having a little bit more confidence in yourself. He has these few paragraphs that he discusses a bit on the fact that we'll have our own thoughts, ideas, and opinions about something, but we kind of discard those things right away because we just think, well, if it's coming from me, it can't be a good idea. It can't be the right opinion.
Right.
Um, he's not saying that you should be arrogant or that you should be aggressive, but he is saying that um, you should have a little bit more self-confidence to a degree, because it's funny how sometimes we will have an opinion about a topic, or we will have an idea, but we won't share it, we won't develop it, we won't believe in it because it's coming from us, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll hear the same idea a few months later from somebody else and just be like, well, yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. And then it's kind of like, oh, and then you almost get that feeling of like, well, dang, like I thought of that. I should have just, I should have
Yeah.
did that, or I had that idea already, and it's that essay's really good. It's only like 20 pages or 20 something pages. And it's, yeah, it's one of the best texts, that English text, at least, that I've read in a long time. It was kind of mind blowing to read a text by someone who's like, over 100 years ago, who's writing some ideas, or you're just like, wow, this is so relatable today. I'm
Dude.
sure, and it was so relatable then, but it's a very powerful text. So Self-Reliance, if any, for anyone who wants to check that out, it's a great essay to read. He also kind of touches on how he brings up how, following the society and what the society is telling you to do and being the norm doesn't serve you at the end of the day. And he just uses those he even, like, over 100 years ago, uses those typical examples, almost 200 years ago, those typical examples of just look at all the greatest influencers in the world. Like, let's forget the term now with Instagram and Facebook and
Right.
YouTube. Like,
Right.
everyone calls themselves, oh, I'm an influencer. Okay, well, you sell a product, right? But
Yeah.
he talks about the real influencers, and in his essay, he just goes right to it. He's just like Jesus, Leonardo da Vinci, like the names that obviously are infamous. They're so famous, celebrity kind of names today, or they're almost legend at this point, or like myth, or people almost even believe those people existed. But he says, like, you look at all those people, they were true to themselves. They had certain levels of creativity and ideas that, if they let the society mold them, or they tried to fit to whatever the society wanted them to fit, they would never have done what they've done. So it's a great essay to read, and it's really important that people really, at least I would like to think, and it's my opinion as well, that, yeah, we have to try to maintain a certain organic um, sense of self, because if you try to fit the mold too much, then eventually you're completely invisible.
Yeah. Dude, I'm actually want to read this, man, because that's there's so much power in that, and it's just profound. Because when, as you just said, when you try to fit the mold, what happens is, and you see with artists, and maybe you met people like this, it's like, all right, I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm going to be me. And then you start to get in through these processes. And then it's like, oh, we want you to do this, or we want you to try to do this. You start getting a little more fame, start getting more attention, a little more money. It's like, all right, well, I'm still true to myself, but I'll do these things just so I'll play ball for a little bit. And then you get to a certain point where it's like that, you hear stories and experiences all the time where people go, oh, I've lost that. And because what happens is, I feel once you get it too deep into a system, you can't just be like, well, let me just try a little bit. Let me just get in a little bit and then I'll be true to myself. It's very hard unless you have a really understanding of self. It's really hard to get away from that material. And as you said, the self-reliance is, some people will want to dip their toes to get in, and then they'll a lot of times lose sense of self. Or you get the people who have ideas, have this ability to really, be on that stage, let's just say, but they're afraid to even start taking any chances. And as you said, it's like, oh, there's an arrogance, there's an ego, all these pieces that might get in people's ways for not even starting. And like anything else, there's a fine line, and it's a balance. There are times to be arrogant. There are times to be truly that selfless, or, taking a step back and just being, maybe a passenger. Because and then that's the thing is people, this is part of the, what I would call the gravel of society is, don't be arrogant, don't be rude, don't be all these things. And it's like, true. But if I'm saying to you, you're like, Moses, my back is killing me, man. I don't know. I'm like, I can help you. I will do everything in my power to help you, and I can help you. Pat, you're being arrogant. No. I've spent years of understanding this world in expressing through, training and trial and tribulations. I can help you. I can't say I can fix you, but I can help you. It's like, what is that, arrogance or is that confidence? You know what I mean?
I would say it's more confidence than
This is,
arrogance.
but this is the thing is you use these words, we can just throw it. If I don't like you, or if someone doesn't like me, go, he's arrogant. We'll hear what he said. And if that somebody is someone who has power, that's someone who they're talking to, be like, well, I don't know. What, you don't agree with me? You think he's arrogant? Do you want your position here? Like, it's this constant, like, no, yeah, definitely arrogant. As we said, the complacency, not thinking for self, asking questions. Because as you said, what is society looking at as? How is it being expressed? These great thinkers, these infamous people, how were they viewed? Look at this guy saying he doesn't mind if someone has leprosy. Look at him. He thinks he's better than us, or like whatever the case is. Look at him thinking he can heal people. Well, he is. Do you want to go to the chopping block, brother? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, screw that guy. Hey, this guy's really an artist, man. He's creative. He's scientific. Yeah, but, I'm a science too. Okay, well, he's better. Yeah, no, totally, he's better. How many great minds could have come about more than the ones that we hear about? It's like, are people being complacent? Are people, that self-reliant of being like, no, I can do this. I have the capability. I am worthy.
Right.
And
it's a fine line. It's a fine line because it is really difficult. It is really difficult,
but it's but it's not allowing the noise of other people to mess with you. And that's just my opinion. Is this because you're going to get someone who's like, hey, Moses, I really love your sound. Have you thought maybe of doing more pop songs? Yeah, no, I appreciate it. No, I really think you should. Like, look, I have some polls I can really get you, but if you do some pop songs, I can get you there. I'm like, just think for myself. I'm going to do my own thing, man. Like, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's like, it's staying true to self, right? Like, people are going to want saying, oh, Moses is such an a-hole. Well, why? Dude, I was trying to give him advice and help him, and he didn't take it. It's like,
yeah, that's the unfortunate side sometimes as well. I mean, I've actually had those experiences
really
a few times, and I played along a couple times, where, because I also felt like the people involved were genuine, and they were. In these, I'm not trying to even put anybody down, but I've had a few proposals, I would say, where it was like, oh man, your voice, oh, let's just put out a bunch of electronic techno tracks, or club tracks, or hip hop tracks, or this or that or whatever. And I turned most of them down. There were there were only like one or two that I've actually accepted, and it was because I had the liberty to really write what I wanted to write and do what I wanted to do. Um, but yeah, most I've had a few of those opportunities. And yeah, for me, I that just kind of goes with my being a street musician. I like to say like a street fighter. it's that's kind of been my thing ever since I made that decision to kind of even be a street musician. I was like, all right, well, if I'm gonna take it to this point, then
Mm,
I'm really gonna fight for what I want to do. I'm gonna use the opportunity to play on the street as a way to try to make a living and continue funding my project to do what I want to do. If that means that I live my whole life um, just trying to put music out there that someday people will enjoy, that will create some kind of energy or light that'll inspire others, but never see the benefits of it all, I made that choice to be okay with it, to realize that it's not in the results, it's in the process, it's in the creative process, in the journey. And that even for me, I'm not trying to sound like this, all kind of like, you know, illuminated kind of or enlightened being like, yeah, I made this choice to follow the light, but
right.
it is a tough thing, it's a tough thing to be like, okay, do music that's going to make me money to have a nice house and nice car and nice things, or make that choice to really. And there's been moments where that, there's the that other side that's like, oh, come on, you're going to be living this for a long period of time. This is what you're going to do. You're a street musician for the rest of your life. You're going to, a lot of these different kinds of, it's a great film. Maybe you've seen it. I think it's called 40 Days and 40 Nights with
Yeah, yeah,
Ewan McGregor.
yeah.
And I love this film because they, as Jesus, it's from Jesus'
Yeah.
story where he goes into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. It's funny, well, not funny, but it's really interesting the way they show him as he gets tempted by the devil in the Bible. They just depict this actual figure, right? But the way they do it in this film is that when he's getting tempted by the devil, it's just him. It's
Yeah.
just his negative reflection. And that's what I think really happens to everybody. And,
Yeah, man.
and within the music industry, it's like sometimes you have that negative reflection or I want to say evil, but like that reflection that comes in. It's like, well, you're really going to do this. You're really going to achieve that. Like, oh, just sell
Right.
out and just do the music that everybody wants to hear,
Bro,
and
you're tapping into some heavy stuff, and in such a powerful way because, and I have to chime in if you don't mind.
yeah,
It's that truth, man. When you just understand the bigger picture here, there is God, there is the devil. And as you said, it's within self. Why are a lot of these celebrities, a lot of times, whether it's true or not, I can't say with certainty, but from what it sounds like, they have a hard time being by themselves. They need somebody around, even when they're, at night, because a lot of times, or even some people, it's like, I look in the mirror, I didn't even recognize that person. It was scary. It's because what you're doing is when you understand, as you said earlier, about choice, these are choices. Your choices are directly going to affect you. Do you follow the path of God, or do you follow the path of material or the devil? Why did the devil, or Satan take Jesus to the mountain and was like, this could be all yours. Just bow to me. You see in the movie
mm,
300, I can give you wealth. I can give you love. Just, kneel before me. Like now.
right, right.
And these are these powerful messages that we see in movies and music and plays and books and artists and just drawings. And we go, oh, it's just stories, but it's not. When you understand that this is all happening now, it's always been happening. Like you said, oh, the guy wrote a book 100 200 years ago. The same shit was happening there. Time is not linear. These things are always happening. The
Mm-hmm.
Bible is being dealt with every single day. And when and people don't want to understand that because for whatever reasons, but when you take a minute and understand, like, you're living this story, is you in many very clear ways. You realize it all comes to your choices. It comes to the choices that you make. Like you said, I can, live that life of just being true to myself, playing my music and having that, or I could fall into the temptations. Well, let me ask you, why did you call it temptation? You know what I mean? Like from your point of view, you could have just been like, oh, or I just, make the music that everyone wants to hear and I make a lot of money. But it's like we hear ourselves say like, oh, or I got tempted or I sold out. Is that truly something that you're feeling, or is it what you've been told? Like this is the creative mind of always, for me at least, asking questions, really diving in. Well, why did that person describe themselves as like, I don't want to sound like I'm illuminating. Is that truly how he's feeling? Does he feel like he's getting on a pedestal, or has he been programmed to think like if I speak highly of myself and that I'm someone who's had trials and tribulations, if I speak and say like, look, I've been on this path of trying to be enlightened, and not enlightened in a sense of negativity, but truly finding the best self of who I am. If someone's saying that, I'm like, dude, I believe it, man. This person's genuinely showing like this, they've been through some shit to get to where they are.
Mm.
I know I'm kind of jumping around, but it's just like these are the things where it's like, I'm honored to be doing what I do. I'm very good at it because I've made a lot of mistakes. Or, I don't want to like, sound like I'm the best trainer in the world, but I've really, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. It's like this almost like hesitancy of like, is this person not being true to themselves by expressing themselves? And I think it comes to how we've been perceived, these temptations in the world. I know I've went on a huge tangent there, but it all does come
No,
back.
no, it's good. I mean, I'm picking up a lot of what you're throwing down, and I mean, I definitely understand and relate to to a lot of what you're talking about. But yeah, again, it's this kind of returning back to the at least the self-reliance and self-confidence. It's within the creative process. It's extremely important. It's extremely important, and it's yeah, just to sum it up, it's the choices. It's the choices that you decide to make, and some of them are going to influence you right away. Some of them aren't. And yeah, it's one of those kind of topics where you can really dive into one specific topic or the other, but it's not necessarily an easy thing to define
Right. No.
for every artist or for every genre of music or for every art or every kind of service that's being provided. It's not always so easy to define. It's difficult because, and now this is sort of diving into something else, but seeing everything that's been going on in the world recently, and then just even today as we went out to do some simple grocery shopping for Christmas and seeing the kind of frenzy that's all around.
Right.
There's those moments where I'm just getting irritated by, or not road rage, but almost just like a certain level of that
Yeah. No.
throughout the whole experience,
Yeah.
because people cutting you off, people going crazy. But then I just try to just think to myself and just be like, well, it's not anybody's fault though that we're like this. Really, like, we are to a certain degree following a system, and within that system there are certain rules and influences that tell us this is what we should do, this is what you need to do. And yeah, for all of those artists who make the choices to follow that kind of musical career or serve and sell a product in a way that is kind of limiting their creativity or that is kind of dimming their light. At the same time, it's like I said, I think with the Jack Johnson or Maroon 5 example, it's like there's really no right or wrong. There's no bad or good necessarily. Sometimes it's just, you know, just the influence of the way the world, and it'd be great if everybody had that consciousness to be like, well, no, I'm going to do the right thing, or I'm going to do what I feel is the right thing. But most people, unfortunately, when you consider the fact that where you live in the US and where I'm at in Europe, we're a really privileged continent in the rest of the world. And then there's other parts of the world where if you try to have that same kind of mentality with musicians or other people in other parts of the world, they're like, man, I'm just trying to make money to like buy food and
Right.
to survive. Like, I don't care what
Yeah.
what anybody's talking about as far as like save the world or save the planet or do this or do that. Like, I need to just get enough money to buy my groceries to survive for a week. So if I got to do this or sing this or do this job, or, and that's something I need to always be thinking of as a privileged individual, and not trying to like judge, I guess, other people then too much. But it's again, that's why I guess I was just bringing it back to it's a it's a really difficult thing to kind of define. But to sum it up, yeah, people in the creative side of the arts and the influencers of today are, I think, even more so heavily influenced by the money and
Yeah.
the quote unquote success, you know.
Yeah.
um
So kind of going off of your thing, talking about like people in the world, or just living day by day or week by week to pay food. What would you say if one of them said to you, be like, man, I'm privileged. I have the privilege of waking up every day, being with my family. Because I've actually had this conversation with somebody and it made me
right,
think. I
right, right.
met someone who didn't have a lot, and he goes, I am privileged. And I like, and it blew me away, man. And we had an awesome conversation. I learned so much from this guy. He's like, I am
Right.
privileged. And I was like, how so? He said, because I get to wake up every day. And he's like, and I get to learn from my mistakes. And I made a lot of mistakes. He was homeless. I was like,
Hmm.
so interesting. Well, why do you see yourself privileged? He goes, dude, I get to eat. I find ways. I meet new people. And I was just like, it is all that is perspective. So if someone's calling me privileged that I don't know, and they don't know me, depending on what you mean by privilege, it's all perspective. And this is just one of those things.
Yeah, for sure.
It just blew me away of like talking about, how we see the world, how we experience the world, how we experience, as you said, not going and trying to save the world. That's not my job. That's not your job. But how do I in my own life influence my decisions, my outlook, my understanding of self? Because that's then what really does emanate from self and creates, whether it's a dim light or a strong light, and that's what draws people's attentions or repels people. And I think that just for me. So I guess with the question, like, what would, I know I'm kind of throwing you on the spot here, but like, what if someone came to you with that mindset and like, man, I'm privileged?
Well, no, for sure. I mean, in my own experiences, being like-minded individuals, thankfully, I've had those opportunities where I've met here in Europe, like refugees from Syria who have come to Europe because their house was blown up.
Mm,
It's why I actually wrote a song years ago where I tried to put money together to donate to, like
yeah.
the refugee, I think, organization. I forgot the exact title of it at this point, um, here in Europe. But I wrote that song because I started realizing that we were all refugees. It's kind of like the lyrics of the song. We are all refugees just trying to find our way home,
Mm,
walking miles and miles just to like have peace of mind and just to be safe, just to have a nice, comfortable life, what everybody wants really, or at least has the feeling that that's what they want. But luckily, yeah, in my life, I've had those opportunities where I've met individuals who completely, like, just like your experience, which blew my mind,
yeah.
in the sense where, growing up in America and spending most of my life there, what I used to consider important, what I used to value, my whole outlook, which is why I say we would be privileged. And I guess even for those individuals, like you said, this homeless person that you spoke to, where he even says that he's privileged, I guess then it's all just a perspective. And that's extremely, extremely enriching and humbling, like meeting those people where they completely make you just like, well, wow, like this person is looking at the world in such a completely different way than I am. Like I've been blinded this whole, I'm 34. My first experience with someone like that was maybe around 26, 27. Before that was all of my friends, where everybody was just playing the rat race of like new car, new phone, the new clothes, the new digs, like what makes me cool, what makes me not cool. And then meeting individuals that kind of just like, wow, I've been completely completely blind, like for already, if I live to be 60, half of my life, and it's like, yeah, it's really one of those things where I would, in my mind, my reaction to, oh, well, I'm privileged, would be like, what, you're privileged? But, because I'm already putting them in my mind, I'm looking at that person and thinking that that person is in a position where they're not well off. But, again, because of these enriching experiences, then your perspective can change, your perception can change, and then you give so much more value to what you have. I really think that's a huge problem in
Yeah.
the culture and the society, in Europe and in the US and other similar kinds of countries, where we aren't giving enough gratitude. We aren't giving enough, and to like everything, to the creative process, to the opportunity to have that. And really, like, it's, it's funny because those are just the simple things. Those are like, you should just be grateful that you get to wake up, that and personally, I try to use that as when I have those days where I don't want to create, where I'm not in the mood to write, where I'm not in the
Mhm.
mood to do much of anything because of the situation we're in right now, or even just because it's a crummy day outside or whatever. Luckily, like you, I've met those individuals that just make me be like, well, no, 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 I need to, because if someone like that is in a good situation,
Right. Yeah.
and right, I mean, I have no reason to complain whatsoever, really, So
Totally.
I would say those experiences are life changing,
Dude, they're the best experiences I've ever had, man. And what's so, as you were saying about how we forget is society, or in my mind, there's a programming involved, and I'll explain in a sec, but it becomes a situation where how does this person not say thank you? Or why is it so shocking sometimes when someone genuinely is like, thank you, or hey, have a good day? It's because it's a matter of, well, the world owes me something. I've been told Western society, Europe, all these things of, well, I'm told that if I do this, then I deserve this. I deserve X, Y, Z. I'm owed this. Poor me. Yeah, you should feel that way. It's okay to be poor me, poor me. And in my mind, it's like, well, why?
hmm
Why? Because I can't tell you you're wrong and I'm right. I don't have that ability. If you're trying to hurt somebody, like as I said, some biblical stuff, like if you're trying, bear fault with false witness, that's wrong. I can be certain about those things because, we can dive into that another time. But the fact is like, why do you deserve it? Why does the world owe you something? I don't believe it does. I don't, it doesn't matter your gender, your height, your color of your skin. No one's owed anything. Because
Right.
you can meet people, and this is where I think we're is talking about the creative aspect as well, is because when you're constantly, from what I've observed, people who feel like they owe something, you're now just working, as I said, within the four walls that are given to you, because that's where you're told, that's where everything is, that's where the success is, that's where the happiness is. And when you're in that four walls and you're playing ball and you're just going with the flow and you don't get what you want, well, I did everything everyone told me to do, this isn't fair. And then, people go tell you like, well, life isn't fair, tough stuff, or no, you should feel this way. How do we get, resolve this? Blame somebody else for the problem. Blame somebody else. I just want people to appreciate me. Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, don't talk to me. I don't know you. Get away from me. But why won't
Mm.
anyone give me attention? I'm on the social media. Nobody likes my stuff. Hi, ma'am. How can I help you? Hi, sir. How can I help you? I'm good. Thanks. Do you get what I mean?
Mm.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just,
yeah, for
I
sure.
observe these things over and over again. And as you said earlier, it's like there are gonna be certain moments where, myself included, where I get frustrated about something simple. I allow my emotions to get the best of me. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it's the conscious of, am I, one, blaming the world around me? Is it, hey, that was my emotion, that was my reaction to a situation. No one else's problem. That was mine. I own that. I apologize, or you know, I won't let that happen again. Or I'm aware of how that you're saying you're feeling this way. I'm aware about how my actions may, are having you feel this way. I can see that. I can experience that. And
Mm.
it just opens in my mind that ability to meet the people that you do we have had interactions with, where you get to a certain point where you go, I can blame the entire world for why I am here, or I can, say why this was wrong and this was wrong and how I was betrayed, or whatever the case is. But I'm here. All I have is now. And this is that present awareness stuff that I'm always talking about is I got now. That's all I have. What do I do with it?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with it? As we said, it's choice. And people lose sight of that choice. They think they don't have a choice. They think, I don't know what to do. I don't have any choices. No, you have choices. They're just hard. Life is going to be hard, and that's not a bad thing. That's how some of the best music gets made, is through people's hardships, is they bring it to life. They learn how to communicate it, in books, like that self-resilience. Like that guy probably wasn't just like, dude, I got everything I need. Like, let me write about self-resiliency. Like that guy that you're speaking of, to some degree, experienced some hardships, experienced this struggles, sacrifice, and
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine, go, hey, this is what I've grown from that. This is what but I've allowed myself to take that journey. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. It puts a lot of things into question, when you have those experiences and you really start looking outside of your box and poking your head out and looking around and seeing how other people are living in the world, seeing um, how much opportunity we actually have, sometimes, and how it comes down to, yeah, it comes down to these choices. It comes down to the way we are looking at something, or our own perspective. There is obviously, of course, that side of it where, and I've met a lot of people, great people, but their argument would be, well, I didn't have a choice. I was just born. I was just brought into this world. I'm here. I have to now find a way to deal. And it's kind of like, yeah, of course. So yeah, it's like the other kind of discussion we were having, as far as with, the creative side, the music, the choices that we make. It's super important to one, have that kind of self-confidence in yourself, but also kind of be, I think, open to the realization of like the rest of the world and like what's going on. And that stuff really helps you, at least in my own life. It's really helped me give value to so much. um just being grateful for all the little things that I have. And I feel like if that was something that the majority of people in the Western society did, um it would change. I think that small change would make a huge impact in the rest of the world. If people started looking at gratitude um, in their everyday lives, you know, I don't know, maybe that's just my simple mind kind of thinking, like, or,
Dude,
that would change things.
but what is the saying, man? Dude, go back to the basics. Simplicity is where all the answers lie. You could be the best musician, as you said, with your voice. I had to go back to just learning how to use my voice. That's where the power always lies. We make in our minds, we conjure up how complicated can we make this to explain it or to express something, and it is in the simplicity. So,
Right.
and I'm with you. I agree with you. It's like, oh, it's like, I know this is maybe my simplistic mind outlook on it. It's like, yes, but that's the beauty. You're allowing yourself to be simple about it, and that's in before you know it, it's like, oh, just learning how to have gratitude in your own everyday life. Everyone's like, oh, it's so simple. It's like, yes, but as you said about having the different outlooks on life and seeing things, it's like Plato's cave. Have you ever heard of the Plato's cave?
Mm,
So Plato's cave
no.
is basically a story about they're in this cave and there's a bunch of these prisoners that are shackled and they're looking at a wall where there's behind them is basically the people running the show, like showing them their world through these like stick figures, and there's a fire, so it's illuminating on the cave wall. And one of the prisoners gets out, leaves the cave, and goes and leaves and sees all the beauty in the world. Has a whole new perspective on the life they've lived, and they go back to the cave and they go, guys, like there's an entire world like this is not all it is. And they're going, leave us alone. You're crazy. Look at, how do you not see what's right in front of us? And they're screaming from the top of their lungs, being like, guys, this is not what you think. This is an illusion. I can show you. Just turn around. Just literally turn your head this way. No, I don't want to hear anything from you. I don't even know where you're talking from. Just leave us alone. You're crazy. We're all doing this. Just do this. And they're going, no. And that's the beauty of Plato's cave is when you're allowing yourself to be someone who goes, wait a minute, there's something new here. There's something doesn't feel right, or my creative thought process is telling me to ask questions, think for myself here. Let me go look around. Oh, wow. Actually, these shackles aren't even attached to the wall. I'm just around my wrist.
Mm.
Let me go explore. Oh, wow. Look at this beautiful. Whoa, this is great. And I think that's what, but it's sometimes it's simple. It's like, this is the most simplest things of like being grateful, or simple, turn around. You might get a new perspective on life. You might be
Yeah.
able to see your experience. As you said, the people who go, well, I was born into this. Well, then I'm not saying that people don't have hardships. I completely understand. But what about those stories that inspire so many of us on those, those contest shows, or just in interviews where people go, oh, I had this life, all these hardships. And then we want to sit and wait for them to perform because we've fallen into their backstory of all their hardships. And then you hear them and you're just so mesmerized. They still have a gift. They've used a gift and they didn't let their hardships get in the way. So it's like, to those people who say, well, I was born in this, I go, well, this person was too, but look at what they've done. And I'm not bashing you. I just ask, are you defined by that?
Mm.
People don't want to be defined by that. Some people do. So that goes back to more of those questions that I have. And it's just, I ask then myself, do I want to be defined by, moments in my life where I felt hurt or unloved? And I go, no, I don't want to be defined by that. And it's like, because that's not where I want my creative mind to take me. And that's, or how I view relationships, or, I'll ultimately view myself. So,
Right, right. Yeah, for myself today, taking it back to that simple, minimalistic kind of way of life, it's for sure uh, one of the philosophies that I really try to live presently, and like every single day is trying to have one, gratitude for the things that I have, especially in those moments where I'm stressed out or angry or just kind of pissed off because things aren't working out the way that I want them to work out. I really need to breathe, take that breath,
yeah.
center myself back, and then automatically be as conscious as possible to try to be like thinking of gratitude. It's not that bad. Everything's okay. And for myself, there was a moment in my life where with my music, I wanted to kind of change the world. I wanted to kind of like, okay, I'm going to, put these messages out that are going to influence the whole world, that are going to do what Bob Marley did, or
Yeah.
other musicians like him that I just admire and I'm really inspired by. But into today, I'm really just living in a place where I really just want to, I really realized, I think that the best way for me to do that is to really be the strongest version of myself, where I'm really balanced, mentally, physically, spiritually. And yeah, I wouldn't say I've given up on the rest of the world, but I've started to kind of think a bit more about just trying to maintain myself, and just trying to be as aware and conscious and awake as possible. Because I think that that's really the only way, at least for me, that I'm going to influence other people, that I'm going to write the best songs that I can, by just trying to keep it simple, just trying to be grateful for what I have. I've been blessed to have so many amazing opportunities and meet so many almost mythical characters and people in my life, that in today's for my mindset today is more so just try to really practice what I preached to other people, and just trying to make sure that I can be the best that I can be, just for myself, to then share that with other people, you know, on little small levels, you know, because I think that's the best way we can make change. And like we talked about, it's the simplest things are the most profound. And yeah, it's a pity sometimes that, you know, I listen to some people talk, and we get into all this, sometimes these negativities and all these things that are happening in the world, and all this stuff that is bringing them down, or that's bringing down the world, and this and that. Um, and I step out of that for a little while sometimes, and just thinking like, well, yeah, we just need to change the perspective. We just need to be a little bit more grateful for the stuff that we have. And like Plato's cave, unfortunately, so many people they're okay to just leave the chains on and stay within that little box. And for me, I've reached this point of like, well, if you're okay, that's okay.
Yeah, dude.
And me, I'm just gonna live my life and
Totally.
try to take advantage of it as much as I possibly can. And then hopefully I leave something behind that will help someone else, even if it's just one other person, find that kind of consciousness and follow that road less traveled by, you know, because um, I really think that that God or the universe or the force is going to kind of, um, every person is going to have to go through their own kind of trial. And if they're meant in this phase of life to find that truth, they will. If they're not, it's, I used to think that it was like you even said, I used to think that it was my responsibility to change those people, or to, like, you know, help somebody else kind of
Right.
realize that they could just turn around and take the chains off and see the rest of the world. But then I started thinking, well, I really need to just focus on me being the one who's always on that, you know, because you can fall off so easily and then just be just like everybody else, you know, with the chains on. Um, but yeah, it's a very deep topic that you start diving into that. It's a really deep thing to go into. Yeah.
But that's the thing that more than ever right now is what I think I feel, and through the experiences I've had with conversation with other people is that's what a lot of people want, is those deep conversations. We've lived a very superficial life, a lot of us, where it's been about, what is your job? What do you do? Hey, nice to meet you, Moses. What do you do? Oh, wow, it's nice to meet you. I'm Moses. I'm a musician. Oh, what kind of musician? Do you play? Have you played anything that I know? And that just becomes, that's the life that we see a lot of us living, where it's, those are the conversations. Oh, you know, hey man, things have been a little tough. Cool, man. I just got a promotion, so yeah. Oh, great, man. Cool. You know, like, have you, you know, and it's just, you don't ever want, a lot of people are afraid to get on those paths. My opinion is because when you have a material life that is so good, for a lot of people, driven by what, the devil offered, Jesus, is it's hard to let those things go. And when you start to really analyze self and really dig deep with self, what ends up happening is you have to come to that crossroad. And people just, in their heart of hearts, knows, if I start asking these questions, or if I start digging deep within myself, this is what starts to happen, is I have to reevaluate the way I view the world, the way I view life, not from other people's point of view, but my own point of view. And
Right.
that's scary, because you're literally changing your perception of the world, of your world, and the realm.
Yeah, for sure. That's in my opinion why there's so many individuals, and I've met so many individuals that don't want to believe in anything spiritual. They don't want to believe in anything, because they know that even if they start to open that door, they're going to have to judge themselves. They're going to have to answer certain questions. They're going to have to be face to face with themselves for a
Like
while.
you talked
And
about with 40 Days and 40 Nights.
yeah, that's gonna happen as soon as you start to take the chains off and make that choice to get out of the cave. There's gonna be that fear that is gonna come into the equation, and yeah, people, they just don't want to. And then that's that thing of, well, damn, I really want to like help people. I really want them to see that. I really want people to just realize like they don't have to live that life. They don't have to make all those choices. Um, and that they're not limited to a certain set of choices, that they really can just really do whatever they want to do. But it's it's one of those things, at least in my life, I'm really hoping that I can, at least with the music, leave some stuff behind that's going to
Yeah.
hopefully create some kind of a spark for some individuals to realize that. But even for myself, I'm some at times I feel I have so much more work to do, so much inner work to do,
Yeah.
um, to reach a point where I'm really stable spiritually, mentally, and physically, where yeah, just kind of bringing it back in. I just, all right, if I'm going to be simple, minimalistic, all these other kind of things that I know are going to help me, I need to just focus
Right.
on myself. I need to just try to make sure, and it's selfish at the same time, but I think it's the way to, in one way or another, be really self-efficient, and also reach the point where you can then provide a service, you can serve other people, and you can help other people. Is that when you really focus on who you are, when you really know who you are, when you take off those chains and you do the inner work to kind of like
Hmm.
discover the world and discover who you are. I mean, and there's certain things out there though that I think I've just given those simple kind of recommendations to certain friends, like, well, dude, just pack your bags and travel around the world for a little while. Oh, but I can't. But no, you can. You can do workaways. You can volunteer at a hostel and you have food and a roof over your head for a month, and then just hip hop, like hip and hop to like one place to another, kind of hop around. Um and I've met a lot of people that have done that, and that's what I've tried to like share that with some of my friends. But again, it's like the people in the cave that are just kind of like, well, no, you're crazy. I'm fine here. So I don't need to see anything. So then that's why I've reached this point now at my age now, and in my journey of just like, all right, I think Buddha also had it figured out, in a sense that he was just like, he was sitting in that tree, under his tree, and he's doing the inner work, and he would help those who that came across his path, you know what I mean? And just focused on always trying to be that light, always trying to focus on being the Jedi, so to speak. And that's my main thing. And I think that's what's going to help me personally on my creative side. That's what I've noticed has always helped me, to kind of bring this conversation back to, you know, what it's like to be a creative person in today's day and age, especially. Yeah, if I don't focus on those points, the simplicity, the gratitude, the inner work, the reflection, um, on what I'm doing and who I want to be, and what I want to create, then I also kind of see in the whole process that I'm not I don't do something or I don't create something that's genuine.
Right.
So for anyone who is a creator, for anyone that maybe is going through those moments of kind of like writer's block, or
Mhm.
or not having that self-confidence, or certain issues that we've already talked about in this whole conversation, it's really like, yeah, finding that simplicity, realizing that there's nothing wrong with being selfish, and really taking time to figure out who you are, and maintaining that. um but yeah, there's so many. So again, it's that rabbit hole. It's like we dive in, we just jumped into that, or this conversation has kind of been jumping into the rabbit hole, and there's so many different things connected to all of that. We could never, in just like one conversation, really touch on all of it. But
But it's just good, to, as I said, to explore and go into some of these deeper conversations, because you get gems from people just going in deep within self and then trying to express what they're feeling. And if they're not used to it, or you're kind of just free flowing with the conversation, it's going to do what it organically does, and it's going to come to surface. In all tribal communities, what would happen? They'd work 3-4 hours a day, and then they'd rest, and then they'd go at night and they'd share stories, and they'd perform and do festivals, music. And this is how tribes all over the world work. And what's so powerful is these, what they did is they took time for community. They took time for expressing these things, listening to the wise men and women of the tribes, and learning from them, sharing stories, making sacrifices, experiencing death, defying situations, and then it's through, sometimes is maybe people don't see it this way, but through their selfish ways, there comes that selflessness that really everyone always talks about. And I think that's part of the, the misunderstanding of words and how words carry their own energy because of how it's programmed. Don't be selfish. Don't be selfish. Well, if I'm selfish in the sense of I'm taking time for myself and I'm telling you I can't help you right now because I'm not in a place that I can be helpful. Me being selfish and not giving you time or trying to help you on whatever it is. I'm just saying selflessly, I need to focus on me right now because I can't give you what you're looking for. I could be selfless and be selfish and give you, be like, no, I'm here like this, and it has nothing to do with you. It's all
Mm.
still about me. I haven't taken the time, or I haven't admitted, hey, you know what, I I was wrong in that moment. I think it's like, oh, well, we all make mistakes, or writing things off, and I think that's, you know, as you say, we can take so many directions, but I think a big takeaway, at least for me in the creative mindset, and why anyone listening who is a creative is they all say, don't stop being creative, is because the minute you do, you're the one sitting at Plato's cave with the chain around you, and you're not attached to anything.
Yeah.
You've limited yourself to that cave wall with what you can create in your mind. And it's not about being, an anarchist in the sense of how it's portrayed today, of trying to tear the world down and be like, we need to rebuild it. In a way, it's like, no, you can do it without having to tear anything down. It just starts with you. The only thing you need
Right.
to maybe tear down is your perception of self. And
Yeah,
that,
be the change you want to see, be the change you want to see in the world. Start. And that's like, I might have mentioned that even in the last podcast, but it's such a powerful
dude,
quote by Gandhi. I mean, unless you heard it from somebody else, but it's be
yeah,
the change you want to see in the world. You want to see a certain kind of thing happen in the world. Well, that thing needs to happen in your own life. You need to practice what you preach. You can't
dude,
just be, we can't just have all of these opinions like we're discussing, but without at the same time reflecting and being like, okay, no, well, yeah, I also need to be that person if I want to even potentially inspire other people to be someone like that as well. It's really, I think, the key to achieving a lot of like what we've discussed so far.
yeah. Well, I know we've been going, and I gotta get running here. But is there, just kind of ending on? Is there anything you want to get in before we go, or just give people where they can find you, man?
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure. On as far as the internet goes, people can find me under Moses Christopher pretty much on most of the platforms. Instagram is the one that I use the most to
Okay.
share kind of what I'm doing musically and at times personally. Um, so yeah, I would say that that's probably the best place. I mean, I have a website and stuff, but I think today most people are using Instagram as a platform to connect. And I mean, if there's anyone who's ever listening and they want to reach out or ask questions or discuss, I'm open to I'm there, I'm available. So yeah,
Dude,
and I'm sure hopefully we'll get to do this again and talk about some other different topics.
as long as you're willing to go down some of these little rabbit holes with me, man, I'd be more than happy to, dude.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things going on in the world that it's just good to talk about. It's just good to,
Yeah.
even if it's only for the sake of getting it off your own chest, or kind of or getting it out of your own mind and kind of like discussing it with somebody else. It's a really important,
Yeah,
a
man.
really important part of the process.
I couldn't agree more, man. But that all being said, dude, we're looking forward to your new singles coming out, man. So definitely have to let us know when those
Yeah, it's
your way.
I'm pretty sure the next one, Breathe, is gonna be coming out the 22nd of January.
Awesome, man.
Friday. So New Music Friday in January. That'll be out.
Wonderful. Well, when it does, man, let me know. I'll obviously share it to everybody and get that word out because I obviously heard it, parts of it, and I love it, man. So,
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm really happy with the song, and I hope people connect with it. So,
dude, awesome, man. Well, on that, Moses, have a wonderful rest of your day, dude, and thank you so much for
you
your time,
too.
man.
You too. Thanks, bro.
All
Talk
right, see
soon.
you, brother. All right.